Hello, the friends. Hello, the world. Here's Asel, complaint-free life. Today is a bonus session that I've decided to record and have this wonderful conversation with my dear guest, Bob. Bob, it's a pleasure to have you here. And since I enjoyed being on your podcast last time, I thought we should definitely do this again and talk about topics that you are more familiar with since we talked about all complaining last time that I talked to you. So, welcome on board and introduce yourself to my public and audience, and then we go from here.
That'll work. Thank you, Azelle, for having me on. I'm Bob Brumm. I'm an encouragement engineer, and for those that haven't heard that before, it is a combination because of my background. I wanted to study constructional engineering in my college time, and when I went into that, I realized I didn't do real well at physics, and you kind of need physics for engineering. So I switched to business and grew my skills in business and accounting, and then ended up in the IT industry. So kind of a mesh of all kinds of things, but the
Wow.
engineering background really helped me to bridge gaps, if you will. So I
Yeah.
can, I can understand the technical side of things, understand the number side of things, and that really helps in a lot of different ways, especially speaking to many groups, technical
Mm-hmm.
groups. I speak to sales organizations, youth organizations, colleges, universities, and corporate environments. And bridging that gap is a big piece to helping people to understand the value of positivity and encouragement within an environment. So
Mm.
that's in a nutshell what I do.
Amazing. So, knowing that background of yourself, I thought that I bring up the topic of motivation.
Great.
And, this is a topic that comes up a lot, I think, with everyone basically, right? So, the question always is how to motivate yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even talking about teams and others because that's a whole another topic, I think. But let's start with individuals because that's what I'm interested in. So, how to motivate ourselves in the way that we achieve what we want in life, basically. And I thought of discussing several topics around it since you are an engineer and encouragement engineer for that matter. So, what are your thoughts about motivation in general? Why do you think people have difficulty grasping this concept somehow?
Well, it's always interesting because motivation is something that people sometimes think it's Pollyanna. Oh, it's, that pie in the sky that, or just the feel good thing. But it
Mm,
is reality. The thing with motivation, it's a fire within you. It's a
yeah.
fire, it's an inspiration. It causes you to take action. Sometimes those actions are scary. Sometimes it's things you may not normally do. Sometimes it's things you drudge doing,
Yeah.
but you do them anyway because you know that you have a goal in your mind, and that's
Yeah.
what's driving you, is that goal. You see the, whatever it is, the goal you want, that big sale, you see that long-term job that you might be looking for, and that's a drive within you. It's not something somebody else can create.
Yeah.
As Zig Ziglar used to say, motivation comes from within. You can't make
Yeah.
somebody else be motivated, and you can't.
Exactly.
you know
And that's
it,
a beautiful thing. I just wanted to, sorry if I interrupted, but keep your thoughts. I just wanted to say, I think for all of us who are thinking that we should wait for motivation to come, it's a myth that it's already there. You just haven't looked at it, maybe.
Yeah. As Jim Rohn would say in his speeches, he would say, if you're waiting for somebody to motivate you, what if they never show up? You know, I mean, really, if you're, it's, you can,
Yeah.
like now transportation, you can either, okay, if your Uber ride doesn't show up, then what do you do? Okay, maybe you're
Yeah.
going to walk. Maybe you're going to get on a bike. Maybe you're going to find alternate transportation. There's something that
Yeah.
kicks you into gear to take the steps necessary to get to the goal you want.
Exactly. So, in that regard, I want to just also quote Steve Chandler. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but anyway, he says that imagine if you had a ticket to New York tomorrow. You would do everything possible to get there. You wouldn't be waiting around. You wouldn't be saying, "Oh, I lack inspiration to,
Yeah,
order a taxi or something." You would
right.
know what to do, right? So that's
Yeah.
why it's really key why we want that thing that we want, so whatever that goal is, and go afterwards without
Yeah.
waiting around and thinking that there is someone else who comes and tells us. So then the other, I guess, the myth around motivation is something like it comes and goes kind of a concept, like, oh, I lost it. and then and then and then I'm all chasing around finding it, right? So I
Right.
mean, I have it sometimes too, even though I know that it's within me and I can do things even when I don't have so to say, motivation. But
Right.
sometimes my brain wants to trick me into not doing anything because, oops, I lost it. So
Yeah.
how would you respond in that?
I don't think we ever lose it.
Yeah.
It's we get, we're a society of 1,500 stimuli per second or whatever it is.
Mm,
I mean, constantly. Oh, look at that shiny thing.
yeah.
Oh, look over here. What's going on over here? We lose focus on what we're doing. And I think
Yes.
that's the difference is with motivation, it's always within you. We're given it by our creator.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that, yeah, there's going to be things as humans that, oh, we like this. Oh, that looks good. Let's try that. But what's the overall objective? We
Yeah.
need to keep that focused idea of whatever that goal may be, whether it's a personal goal, professional goal, whatever that may be, even a short term goal. Like you said, you're going to get on a flight to go to New York.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the goal? We're getting there. We got to be there at a certain time. We got to
Yeah.
make sure we have a ride there. We have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure we have clothes, etc. You backtrack.
Yeah.
You set things in place so that you're
Yeah.
taking steps to achieve that goal,
Yeah.
and continuing to remember that goal or focus on that goal, I think, is important. We don't really lose the motivation, we just get sidetracked. We're
Yeah.
over here, we're over there. Oh, shiny thing, look at that.
Yeah.
And we need to realize the power that is within motivation, that
Yeah.
power that drives us. And that's what it is. It's an extreme power. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're hurt, you're going to get away from that pain somehow. You
Mm-hmm.
take the medicine, you go see a doctor.
Yeah.
You're going to make sure you do what's needed to alleviate that pain or find the source so you can fix it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you're walking down the street and you get splashed on a puddle, you're not going to stand there and go, oh, wow, that's horrible. Oh, no, here comes another car. Kaboosh, splashes you again. You're going to get out of the way if it does happen. You can get out of the way of that being soaking wet so it doesn't happen to you again. There's a
Yeah.
threshold, I think, that people see that really helps us to go after that motivation even more, that pain threshold, if you will.
Yeah.
And we don't need to necessarily have the pain, but just the idea of the negative possibly of
Mm.
that goal. What if we are late to that flight to New York and we miss it? Oh no. Yeah. Okay, then there's a headache of rebooking. Is it going to
Yeah.
cost me something? Oh no, where did my bag end up? If you have a
Yeah.
bag that you check, all that stuff, is that strong enough why to not to avoid that? That's a
Mm.
motivation in itself because you don't want to have to go through the hassle sometimes. And
Yeah.
we steer ourselves away from, if you will, a pain, and
Yeah.
we tend to go towards a pleasure. And that motivation of pleasure is a strong one as well.
So I think from the, I don't know, at least from the life coaching perspective that I work with clients, we say that so motivation is essentially that feeling that drives us to doing whatever we want to do, even when we're grudging, even when we're tired, even when we're thinking, maybe it's not going to work out, but we're going to do it anyway,
Right.
because that feeling is generated by that belief that we have that goal that we want to achieve, right? So, whatever the firm belief or firm commitment, whatever the thought is there behind that says, okay, I want to do this badly. And therefore, I'm going to keep doing it. Even if times suck and you are crying and thinking, no, it's not going to work out, but somehow it will because that really drives you. So, that's why I think we want to give the message to everyone that it's not something that just disappears or you lose it, or something that you can just keep waiting for someone else to tell you or show you, but rather you keep generating within you if you have that reason why you want to do that. Now,
Yeah.
the other problem, of course, is like you were saying, is that people change their mind on the process, right? They're
Yes.
like, okay, I want to do this shiny thing and I don't want to do it because it's hard or
Right.
something else, we tell ourselves, and then we do something else. So, in other words, I want to go to New York, here's my ticket, but I actually want to go to, I don't know, Bali or another place.
Right.
So, how do we then know whether changing that mind is a good thing or not? Or whether now is time to keep generating motivation for another goal? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question because we none of us have a crystal ball to see the future.
Yeah.
So we don't know, is this really going to pan out to
Yeah.
what we're thinking or that goal we may have? It may not, due to
Yeah.
circumstances beyond our sight, beyond our ideas. And that does happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know in your heart and in your, if you will, in your gut, whether
Yeah.
it's a right move. If you're going to practice to run a 5K, you're not going to wake up 2 days before the race and start practicing.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know in your gut that's just not a good idea
Yeah.
because it's not going to pan out well.
Yeah.
And it stinks having to plan out all that time ahead of time. It stinks getting up at 5 in the morning and running when you don't want to, if it's
Yeah.
cold out or if it's raining out or if you just don't feel that great.
Yeah.
But the ultimate goal of achieving that run, is that enough to drive you?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, it's an internal, deep down inside, we know whether it is a good decision or not. Ask
Yeah.
yourself why at least 6 or 7 times
Mm.
and see, because what that does is that gets down to the true emotions of your decision. It gets
Yeah.
down to the real reason of why you're doing this.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer those questions at least 5, 6 times deep, maybe you don't have a strong enough, you know,
Yeah.
focus for that goal. And therefore,
Right.
you may need to shift because
Yeah.
you start to see those bigger objectives that, like I said, we may not be see right at the moment that will deter us from achieving that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So to continue that thought pattern, I think what I would also say is that if the reason for quitting or reason for changing your mind is because it's hard work and therefore you are giving up, so to say, then you probably shouldn't change your mind. Just even for the sake of building that muscle of commitment and building that muscle of staying on course, and not fearing that hard work or not fearing that emotion, whatever the emotion is, right? But if the reasoning behind is for, I always call it out of freedom, meaning not out of fear of not being able to do something, but out of freedom of knowing the consequence of it, but still
Right.
deciding for something else because that's what you like most after trying this trip or
Right.
trying to go to this airport, then maybe it's a good thing to change your mind. And because you're thinking about your long term goal, you've tried something already and you think it's not what you really want and you don't want to spend your time and you want something else. So that's why check with yourself in terms of what's the reason behind why you are not following your original goal, and whether you like that reason for changing it or not.
Yeah, even ask yourself that why question. Why am I changing my mind? Because like you
Yeah.
said, in your scenario, you may find out, well, yeah, I'm avoiding the pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
College and studying, higher education, it's not easy, but we go through it. We want it.
Yeah.
That piece of paper at the end is what we want. We want to
Yeah.
prove that we can do that. And like you said, that commitment to stick with it shows that you can get through hard things. It shows that you can do multiple styles of tasks to achieve something greater than the initial task.
Yeah.
So great ideas.
Exactly. So definitely I think motivation can be a great tool to build whatever muscle you're trying to build. Meaning, sometimes I tell my clients that you set a goal not for the goal's sake, but for the sake of building your muscles of commitment, of consistency, of following through, honoring your own words in
Yeah.
achieving those goals. In the end, goal becomes like a bonus, but you've learned so much in the process of it. And
Right.
especially you've learned so much about yourself that you can now actually say, okay, I can do anything I want because I can just achieve goals, right? So that's a beautiful thing. And I guess the other question comes up is that life happens, all these things happen, like you said, and we never know what's going to happen in the future. A
Right,
pandemic hits all of a sudden, right? We didn't expect
right.
this. And then we're like, okay, now I'm not motivated, right? The whole world is against me, kind of a feeling is like, I've been generating motivation. Okay, I can do this, but then life happens. It's all difficult, not in my power, and I have difficulty moving forward. How would you motivate that person?
And you bring up a great scenario with the pandemic. I mean, obviously, yeah, we didn't expect it to go this long. There was a lot of
Yeah.
factors involved in it and keeping people safe and all that. But at the same time, what do we have time to do for it now? Maybe we had a little extra time. We can read, we can make ourselves better.
Yeah.
What is when you make yourself better? You do better at your job. Maybe you've been furloughed from your job. Okay, but you're improving your skills.
Yeah.
And then you can go out and share those skills with other organizations. So maybe you can get a better job now that people are looking for more work. People are,
Mhm.
starting to hire again. Things may be opening up. What is the value within you that you can improve?
Mhm.
You may, like you said, there's a lot of things that come out of life that hits us all. When I was 6 years old, I lost my mother to cancer.
Mhm.
Okay, I had absolutely no control over that. What was I going to do with it? I mean, I didn't, when I was 6 years old, I didn't realize this, but as I got older, I realized I was here for a purpose. And that purpose is to
Mm.
help people get through those hard times, to
Yeah.
help people understand the value of that positive perspective, that no matter what happens in our life, we can get through things because we're given great power by our creator. And that power is greatness we all have. We all have that ability within us.
Mhm.
What is that ability? It's going to be different for you. It's different for me, different for
Yeah.
somebody else. But we find that thing that drives us, that
Yeah.
really interests us. And that's what we go after. That's what we learn about. And people don't have to tell you to learn about it because you're so interested in it. People
Yeah.
don't have to tell you what you may hear from them is, hey, are you ever going to sleep? Are you ever going to slow down? Well, no, because I'm really enjoying this. I really like this.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Remember your family, but if you've got a drive to do something,
Yeah.
that builds that. You mentioned that strength. That's building that inner strength that knows that I can accomplish these things. These are things that maybe others can't, but it comes easier to me. I'm going to drive on it. I'm going to expand my knowledge of that because it comes easier to me and I can grow that better. And
Yeah.
everybody's got a different set of skills, if you will, that will drive them and help them improve better and faster than somebody else. So we all have unique abilities. And we've got to remember that value we have. I think that's
Mhm.
so critical is
Yeah.
it, life is going to happen. Yes, we know that, we've experienced it, but continuing, as long as we can wake up in the morning and we hear the alarm and we're breathing, hey, we're in good shape. We got 1440 minutes each day. So take advantage of every one of those moments and
Yeah.
enjoy that. Share your greatness with our world. Share your greatness with your family, whether that's through skills, whether that's cooking great meals or making people laugh or encouraging others, or like you said in your business and coaching people, helping them to see that idea just a little bit different.
Yeah.
The lack of value, if you will, of complaining, but it redirects you to drive further in a positive direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, one of the things that I guess for me that I want to say, if challenges occur, and they always do, and it's part of it, I think being surprised by it is already something that we shouldn't be understanding, but somehow we are the opposite, right? We are always surprised when challenge happens. But rather thinking that it's part of our human experience and we should have those challenges. And what's beautiful about them, I think, is that they show us where our strengths are and for us to learn about them and unpack them and show to the world. As long as we're not hiding, as long as we're not closing up and saying, oh no, the world came to an end and I want to just stay at home and not do anything, right?
Right.
That's obviously a strategy as well. It's just that it's a strategy where you lose a lot, I find. But if you are opening up to it and saying, yes, of course, it's part of our human experience, and we have all the tools, as you said, that we can actually handle and even be better at it every time and get better at it every time to a point that we just take it for granted, and we get surprised actually when there is no challenge. We're like,
Right.
okay, something has gone wrong here because
We're waiting
I
for the other shoe to drop, like,
he's,
what's going on here?
so I think the key there is, even though in the moment when we're facing it, of course it becomes painful, we experience a lot of emotions that we don't really want to experience most of the time, but we know that we can overcome them, and also we can overcome in a very resilient, strong way, that we actually generate more skill and more strength and power than we can ever before. So that's why I think we just, yeah, maybe we just not only accept but expect that challenge should be there, otherwise we will not shine like
Right.
diamonds, right?
Well, and with those challenges, we need to know that there's value in those. It's
Mm,
going to be painful. It's going to hurt sometimes, but it's just like working out. There's pain in that.
yeah,
It hurts sometimes, but we know the value of it. We know that our health can be much
yeah,
better when we work out, when we take care of ourselves, when we eat right. Is it easy? No. Do we want a Snickers bar sometimes? Yes. But maybe the apple is better to eat a little more often than the Snickers bar. We know that, and we understand that, and that weight we put on that, like you said, that goal, or that great feeling of, okay, now I'm healthy. I can walk easier. I can breathe easier. I don't have to see the doctor as often. Those are some good goals to have, and the health of your body prolongs, your enjoyment of life.
yeah,
And we start to understand the value of, okay, these things are going to happen. We're prepared for them. We see them as value in our life. We're not running from saber-tooth tigers anymore, so we don't have to hide in a cave, which is a good thing.
yeah,
So let's, enjoy the moment. Like you said, sometimes you're waiting with trepidation, like, okay, wait, there's no issues right now, what's going to happen
yeah.
next? Enjoy that moment for a few minutes. Breathe. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. Go
Mm-hmm.
outside and see the great sunshine and enjoy a moment. Take a moment with a coffee and just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other question, I guess, is that in that context, is that let's say that some of us actually good at facing
Mhm.
outside challenges, but of course many of us have our inner demons or divas, whatever we call it, right? Enemies, I mean, everyone calls it in different ways. So basically there is someone sitting within us who's saying, you didn't do it right, you didn't do it well, or whatever the case may be, that kills motivation internally.
Yes,
And then we're like, damn, I just had it and now I lost it, right? So it's a
right.
bit like we're battling now not with the external world but within ourselves. What would you say to that?
Turn it off if you can. I mean, there is. Believe me, I hear myself sometimes. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake?
Yeah.
What are you calling yourself? Oh, you bonehead, or you idiot, or
Yeah.
what are you saying to yourself? You don't have to believe that first,
Mm-hmm.
and realize that, okay, it's a temporary thing. Okay, you made a mistake. We all do.
Yeah.
You know, uh, it's part of life. We learn
Yeah.
from that, right?
Yeah.
So, do we know how to correct it? Okay, if you don't, maybe you got to look it up on YouTube. There's videos for everything, right? You know, you'd be surprised. The kids today, that's what they always do. They
Yeah.
pull up a YouTube video. Oh, there's how you do it. Okay. But there's options to re-energize that motivation. And yeah, we're gonna fight. There's always that one side of you that, your family could be saying, why do you want to do that? Why are you trying that? That won't work. Have they done it? Have they experienced what you have in order to get to where you are
Yeah.
and continue?
Yeah.
Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. You've got to weigh those options of, do they have the skills in place that gives, even, okay, you may experience something badly
Yeah.
and say, oh, I know that's not going to work very well. Or you go to call that person, they're going to say no. We'll change the tape. You have a reel in your
Yeah.
head that's going, okay, this person will say no. How many people say no, really?
I
Okay, maybe
know.
it's 95 out of 100. Okay, so each time somebody says no, guess what? You're getting closer to that yes. You're getting closer. You're
Yes.
getting closer. Change the perspective of how you hear that voice, because they're going to go, oh,
Yes.
it says no. Everybody's going to say no. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Do you know everybody in this world?
Yeah.
No. So, you can't say that. The person you're arguing with yourself, doesn't know everybody in the world. So that argument's not valid. You just got to understand the value of taking that action, taking those steps to continue with that goal you want to achieve. And it's
Yeah.
not always going to be easy because we can be fighting with ourselves, hearing what our family says, our spouse says, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And we got to understand that value of who we are and that goal we want. I think they're
Hmm.
two big things we need to be solid on, is
Yeah.
knowing the value you have within you, the strengths you have within you, and that the goal you want is what you want. Make
Yeah.
that a very strong goal if it's a, decent goal, and go after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I guess what I could add to that is that um, I would say that you can always put a boundary within yourself
Mhm.
in terms of how you treat yourself. Now, we are good at usually treating other people well. And when it comes to ourselves, we're a bit like shaky, right? So
Yeah,
on good days, we're good. On bad days, everything falls apart, kind of. So that's why it all depends on how you treat yourself in the dignified, worthy manner that you treat other people.
that's a
And in
good
that,
reminder.
exactly, so then in that regard, then it's no longer an option to criticize you to death, but rather be very constructive, right? It's constructive meaning that, okay, I may have done this in this way that I shouldn't have. Now I know and I can fix it.
Right,
Like you said, everything can be fixed. So you can try to fix it that way, or you can learn something and move on. So that's always an option for you to do. So, and the other ways, I think also that people think that mistakes are universal things, like everyone sees my mistake and they
right,
all look at me and say, boo hoo, you're bad. But rather, mistake is something that you call it a mistake for whatever reason. So notice that and ask yourself why you're calling it a mistake. And the other thing is, of course, that why we think that error and mistakes are not part of our human experience. And
right,
this is, I think, also a misleading concept that we should all be perfect through our lives and, smoothly going through, achieving everything we want, and then having everything we want, and then just
right,
be, yeah, great. But, and these are also the beliefs that, come up that you can also question and say, okay, if I want to achieve this goal, there will be many, many mistakes that I will have to make, or failures I will have to face in order to get there. Otherwise, as you said, we don't really value it, because if it's easily accessible and readily made, we would all be getting it, right? So
right,
that's why notice it that you have all these expectations, and you can just ask yourself whether you want to keep believing those expectations, or rather say, no, I'm ready to experiment with whatever happens, because I have all the motivation I need to generate it and to get to my goal. Because if it was easy, I would have gotten a long time ago and I
yeah.
wouldn't have valued it. So these are the things that you could also consider.
And that you bring up a
So yeah,
great point too with that idea of we've got to talk decently to ourselves. That's
yeah.
so critical. Like you said, sometimes we get mad at ourselves and call ourselves names. That doesn't do any good. Like, treat yourself decently. You're allowed to make mistakes. Forgive yourself.
Absolutely. And I think also the other question that we often forget is that, what are we trying to achieve by punishing ourselves, right?
Right,
Because we
right,
often have this idea that if I punish myself so cruelly now, I will not make a mistake. I mean, that's the opposite of what we're going to generate in the end, because we'll be making more mistakes because
yeah,
we're so constraining ourselves and afraid of making mistakes, which generates more mistakes, ironically.
right, yeah,
So, so the world works somehow opposite to what we're thinking, and therefore punishing ourselves has no upside to it.
no,
And knowing that, I think, should make us awaken to the idea that we're going to make mistakes, we're going to learn from it, we're going to move on, and we don't need to be stuck there and not move or quit or anything, because failure's job is not to make us quit, but rather to tell ourselves whether we're really sure about this,
right,
and we keep going, right?
yeah, definitely. It's a life experience is good, and it's all good some way or another, and we're not going to see it right away.
Yeah,
Continue moving. Be like the
exactly.
shark. Continue moving forward.
Exactly. Like, some of the mistakes that I made like years ago, and then now I'm thinking, looking at it, and I'm like, oh, why did I
Yeah,
sweat so much about it, right? It was like so minor in comparison to what I know now. But somehow in that moment, it looks big, and it's okay if it looks big.
yeah,
And then eventually it will become smaller, and then we will actually laugh about it.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's how things
Our
are.
growth helps us to do that.
Exactly. And the other perspective that we could maybe give to people is that beside the why being a very good motivator as to what we can achieve, I guess also imagining ourselves in the future when we have accomplished it or when we have achieved it, how would we feel about it, right? So how would we feel looking back at ourselves, and whether these mistakes and failures would really matter in the light of what we have achieved by then. And I think
Right.
for many of us, it's like we forget about it because we're now in the moment of enjoying what we have achieved. So when you can imagine that, then these things are just part of the process until you get your goal.
Yeah, definitely. It's when you learn to ride a bike, you weren't
Yeah,
perfect the first time, but you don't remember
absolutely.
the scars on your knees or the scrapes and falling down. You remember the joy of, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm riding a bike. And that the air going through your hair and the fun it felt, once you finally got that idea and that skill down pat, now
Yeah.
you don't even think about it. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, this is cool. Yeah, we're riding a bike.
Yeah.
And that's that same thing you're talking about. What's that goal that, all
Yeah.
right, that's what you want to focus on. And there's going to be steps along the way that will scrape us, it'll hurt us, it'll, make us bleed a little bit.
Yeah.
But that ultimate goal, that's what we go after. That's what
Yes.
we're going for.
So that we can say it was worth it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, any final words, Bob, on this topic before we wrap up?
I love the idea of motivation. Like I said, it's not something that others can do to you, but something that it's a fire within you. Remember that you have a fire within you. Everyone does. And that's the strength we need to focus on so that we can go forward. We can achieve the goals we want because of a drive within our heart and our mind. And we'll take the necessary actions to go after those goals that we want because we know that great power we have and we can get through whatever the tasks are going to be. It starts up here in the mind, in the heart. And I
Yes.
think that's critical for everybody to remember. You have greatness within you. Go after those dreams and build your education on those tasks that you're going to need to do and get them out of the way. You can do it.
Yes.
You have great strength within you to go after what you want and what motivates you from within.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. And the last words is that if you happen to kill it or lose it in your mind, great news is you can always restore it and find it because it's within you. So it hasn't gone anywhere and you can always generate whenever you want to. And that's a wonderful source of doing pretty much everything in life, right? So
Yes.
let's go for that source. Thank you so much, Bob, for being here and talking to me about this wonderful topic of motivation. I hope we were able to convince the listeners that this is a great way to do anything. If you don't want to be tired or keep going even when you are grudgy, I hope you will all have it. And yeah, so hope to talk to you in the future.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And if anybody needs more information, they can certainly find me at my website at bobbrummspeaks.com or the Encouragement Engineer podcast. I'm out there on social media as well.
Yes, and you're probably the only one who has the title that says encouragement engineer. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure anyone can find you now.
there you go. Look it up. I'm out there.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.